What up, y'all? DCFAYGOGUY. It is time to count down our top 10 albums of 2023. Each year I come up with a refined way that I come up with my top albums. I've done it yet again this year. The reason being is some of these albums dropped physically, and I had a physical CD of them first. So I ripped it onto iTunes and listened to it like that, and then it finally dropped digitally. So Apple Music, the way it tracks plays is every time you play a song. iTunes tracks it by once the song finishes. It's a play count. So I found that Apple Music tends to track a little bit better, but because some of the albums that came out dropped physically first, I had to kind of track it by iTunes. So I kind of did a little bit of a mix, and I had to add everything up. So what I did is I went through iTunes and I looked at play counts on there instead of using Apple Music. And I took the top 3 songs that had the most plays from each album that dropped this year, and then those got added together to come up with like a score, if you will. Once I go through my list, I will show you what I came up with and how I came up with it. Show your work, how they teach you in school. So let's just jump right into it. One little disclaimer I'm going to put first and foremost is that there are EPs on this, and in the past I have said that I include EPs because they are still albums that drop even though they're only EPs. I think in this kind of day and age there's a lot more shorter albums or a lot more EPs and singles that get dropped, and I think the significance of EPs getting a lot of plays shows just how great they are. Whereas when you listen to a longer album, it kind of gets, like, especially on Apple Music, its play count goes up higher because there's more tracks. So I've always kind of included EPs. It's kind of a top project of 2023, if you will, but albums just always sounds better. So let's jump into it. At number 10, of course, our first EP on the list, Monstar Click with The Game Ain't Safe. Now, when this came out, I knew I was going to like Light's part. I knew I was going to like Straight Jacket because going into this, those were the only two I was really super duper familiar with. Obviously, I know who Project Born is. I was introduced to Schizo from them signing him to Monstar Entertainment and showing him at Lights Out 5. But going into this, I didn't know really what to expect from those guys. I knew going in, Light, Straight Jacket, we're going to kill it. But everybody killed it on this EP. Absolutely fucking great. Game Ain't Safe, gas, if you will. It's them saying as a label they're about to fucking take over the game. The game ain't safe. So very, very, very good project. If you have not listened to it, I would highly recommend it, especially if you do like Light, Straight Jacket. And if you don't, give it a listen anyway. See what you guys think. I think they came correct, and I'm excited for what Monstar Entertainment has in store. I'm definitely excited for Straight Jacket's new project. I know Light has one. I believe he just wrapped up. So excited for what those guys have coming for us, especially after this EP. But at number 10, we have Monstar Click with The Game Ain't Safe. Jumping into number 9, we have our second EP of the list. And this one really wasn't a surprise to me because I fucking love this artist. Since I've discovered him, I think he absolutely kills it. He comes from Mission Infect. He's an Infect general. I'm talking about Gruesome with Dark Flow Solution. This is a 4-track EP, and I listened to this so much, and I actually, one of the songs I listened to the most out of all of them, and that is Poison in My Veins. I love that song so fucking much. I'm a little bit amazed that this EP got more plays than The Nameless 2, which was a full project he dropped earlier in the year, featuring Jimmy Don on production. Dark Flow Solution, that must just be where Gruesome really shines. And I don't want to take away from the fact that The Nameless 2 was still an amazing project as well, but there was something about this EP where it's like he just went off, I feel. And it shows in the numbers when I listen to it. So at number 9, we have Dark Flow Solution from Gruesome. Jumping into number 8, this one, I am a little surprised it made it onto the list because when it first came out, I did not listen to it. It took months for me to listen to it, and a lot of what made me listen to it was another project that came out because the two are tied together. Buckshot and Boondocks, collectively calling themselves The Horde, put out The End Is Nigh. This is like the second or third iteration of Buckshot and Boondocks together. They've put out a project as Hell's Kitchen, which is more so Turncoat Dirty, and Buckshot, and then they put out straight up just an album called Buckshot Boondocks with Paradigm Shift. So them calling themselves the Horde on this one, I didn't fully understand it. I feel like this is more or less another kind of a paradigm shift type album where it's Buckshot and Boondocks, and then the album should be called The Horde, The End Is Nigh, with The End Is Nigh being the subtitle. Like I said, when this first came out, I did not listen to it. A lot of it was I had shoved Bloody Sunday into my fucking head. So when The End Is Nigh came out, I wasn't really kind of in the mode to listen to Buckshot, and I was listening to a lot of other stuff, a lot of Linkin Park at the time, and from what I did with Bloody Sunday, I made the decision that I wasn't going to do that again this year, and because of that, when I listened to The Horde and I wasn't feeling it from the first listen, I simply just turned it off and didn't go back to it for months until I was in the right mode, in the right mindset, which, when it happened, it got a lot of plays, and here it sits at number 8. Very strongly connected to what's going on in Cabal, I believe. There's huge connections. There's references to Cabal on the track Blood of the Heartless, and on Cabal's The Pit, they have a track on there called Curse. I think it's Curse is the name of the song. Buckshot actually references the Horde, so I think they're tied together, and that's a lot of why it got a lot of the plays. The End Is Nigh at number 8. Jumping into number 7, and honestly, this album was really fucking great. In my review, I talked a lot about how this is the kind of music that I want to hear. Hex Tales of a Cursed G. He was what was like keeping me like, okay, I'm interested in what Chapter 17 is doing. Obviously, he's no longer with the label. Hex has the sound that I want to hear. I'm not real big into the trap sound. I haven't really been able to get completely hip to Ouija Mac. While I think Darby O'Trill kills it and has a lot of talent, it's just not a style that I'm really tuned to. And Hex provided that, and Tales of a Cursed G is like just a prime example of that. I really, really love the song Darko. I've yet to figure out what the sample is in the chorus. I'll probably never figure it out. But it's an absolutely great fucking album. And, you know, I'm kind of sad to see Hex leave Chapter 17 because he was the only thing making me say, yeah, Chapter 17's cool. I don't really know I can say that for a while until they have an artist that I fuck with. But I know also in my review for the album, I had said that I would like to see Hex not be kind of shackled to Chapter 17 because I'd like to see him do stuff with other artists. And that statement still stands true to this day. And I really do hope that he ventures out. I hope he doesn't hold himself back just so that he gets booked at the Gathering. Like, at this point, I would love to see him explore. So yeah, Hex, Tales of a Cursed G at the number 7 spot. Jumping into number 6, this one, no surprise to me, but a little bit of a surprise to me because there was things about it that was disappointing, but Magic Ninja Entertainment is what I'm calling it. It's actually technically Twisted, but Songs of Samhain Volume 4. Last year, Songs of Samhain Volume 3 was on the list. Absolutely fucking loved it. And don't get me wrong, Songs of Samhain 4 is really good, but there was things about it, theming, the actual concept of Fatty Patty Pumpkin Bench coming back again. I think there was a lot of ways to really tie the rest of the Songs of Samhain series to this, and it just wasn't there. But there was a lot of really good songs on there, and Merciful Fate from D4L, whatever the fuck they're calling it, Dark Lotus, if you will, Diet Lotus, if you will. Absolutely fucking great track. Had me going back constantly to it. It was just, the numbers don't lie. The Songs of Samhain Volume 4 really blew me away. So it made it to the number 6 spot. Jumping into our top 5. I am surprised that this isn't a little bit higher, but looking at my top 5, I think it landed in the perfect place. This album blew me away. I went into it not knowing what to expect. Stray, Cloudy Alibi. Again, I've talked about this a couple times before. The homie Robbie from Twisted History, Do It From the Underground, as well as the Twisted with We podcast. I want to make sure I plug that because there's a podcast he's a part of. Go check it out. I'd love to see them migrate that to YouTube. I doubt they have any interest in doing that, but I would love to see them do that and maybe include video. he was talking about this album before it came out, and so when it dropped, I was like, I'm going to listen to it because Robbie is highly recommending it. And when it dropped, I was completely blown away. And I've said this before in another video, I would recommend go and check it out. Come back and tell me what you think about it. I've had one of the last times I said that, people did come back and say, yo, thank you for that, because holy shit. Stray fucking came out of nowhere. He's from Sky Swamp Orange. This is his debut full-length album. Again, just killed it on this. He is talented and he has my attention for sure. I mean, he blew so many people away. I think maybe a month after it came out, I got a text message from Roanbone from Beneath the Dirt. He's like, yo, have you checked this album out? I was like, yeah. So it blew him away as well, and I know it made it into his top albums of 2023, which, shout out to Roan, man. Surprised us with that video, man. That made a great day right there. When I saw that notification, I was like, fuck yeah. But yeah, Stray, Cloudy Alibi, go check it out. You won't be disappointed. And if you are, well, there's no helping you. Jumping into our number 4, and I was hesitant on putting this on the list because it is technically a remix album. But whenever these guys drop music, I consume. I listen to the new, I listen to the old, and then I re-listen to it all. Fear Factory with Reindustrialized. Now, this album, like I said, it's technically a remix album. This is the 2012 album, The Industrialist, but it's recorded with live drums. There are some of the guitar riffs that have been re-recorded with some extra like chords in there. It changed everything about the Industrialist album, and the Industrialist always kind of felt incomplete. And a lot of what that had to do with was the ending of the album. It went from disassemble to religion is flawed because humanity is flawed. And then it went into human augmentation. And the way that it did that, which human augmentation is kind of like a spoken word track, if you will. You hear like just voices, you hear this voice talking to you. It's the Industrialist like talking to you and coming to this, like, he's discovering his humanity essentially. But it just always felt like the way that end flowed, it felt incomplete. And we come to find out through Reindustrialized being released that the bonus track from Genexus, Enhanced Reality, was originally intended for the Industrialist, which always made sense because ever since Genexus came out and I heard Enhanced Reality, I was like, yo, this is a callback to the Industrialist, because during Enhanced Reality they say live for today or fade away, which is the chorus from Recharger off the Industrialist. So that callback always connected it, and learning that it was actually meant to be at the end of the album makes sense. So hearing Reindustrialized with that track, and then it goes into human augmentation, the album flows so much better, I feel now, because of that. And and I never had a problem with the recorded drums. At the time that the Industrialist came out, they didn't have a drummer. So for just cost reasons and just to get the album out, they decided to use program drums. And a lot of fans took note of it. And yeah, it sounds different from the rest, but it never bothered me enough to not like the Industrialist. But I have to admit, hearing the live drums, there's a whole new feel to the album now. So if you've never listened to either one, I honestly would say listen to the original first. Listen to the Industrialist and then listen to Reindustrialized, because you'll definitely notice the differences the most, which I've seen people say they don't notice it. Like hearing aids, you can tell there's a difference. You hear it. But Reindustrialized made it on this. It's technically a remake album, but I felt like the changes it made to the album was enough that it deserved to get put on the list. So, yeah. Jumping into number 3, and I'm not surprised that it's here, but I'm honestly just a little surprised it didn't end up higher. Long Live Evil, Lost Lake Estates. This album, to me, is amazing. And if I did my album rankings purely based off of what I'm feeling about an album, this would probably be number 1 or number 2 for sure. But I have to look at numbers. That's the way I've always done these rankings, is because, I can say in a moment, I can at 1 month, like in 1 week, say, oh, this album's the shit. And then the next week be listening to something else, like, oh yeah, this is definitely top album of the year. I don't think, I think trying to rank albums in that way isn't really accurate, but taking the numbers that are given to you, it's absolutely true to it. Like, you've listened to this the most, this is your top album. So that's just the way I've always done it. Long Live Evil, Lost Lake Estates. I listened to the holy shit out of this project. I've made bold statements that people immediately shut down, comparing this to Dark Lotus, comparing this to Tales from Lotus Pod. The reason why I do that, and I'm going to say it again, is the vibe of this project is so reminiscent, because you can tell, you can feel that it's a brotherhood. It feels like a brotherhood, just like Tales from the Lotus Pod did. Like, they were in the studio working together, they were recording together, they were writing songs together, they were coming up with concepts together. It shows on this project. So if you have not listened to Lost Lake Estates, check it out. Tell me what you think. A lot of people shut it down because they're not fans of Super Famous Funtime Guides, and I still can't wrap my head around how or why people are struggling to get into them. I know a lot of people always say it's Whipstick's voice, but it always seems super silly to me to let a voice stop you from enjoying music. I don't know. It's just weird to me to let that be a reason. But I really think this album's great. I feel like anyone who's not hip to Long Live Evil are sleeping on this project, and I think the Divide has a lot to do with it. The Divide has a lot to blame for it, because I feel like if the Divide never happened, everyone would be talking about this album, and there's so many people I'm seeing not talk about it. And there's like one person in particular who for years was like big time praising Zool, hyping up Long Live Evil, and I've not seen this person talk about the album one fucking time. And I'm like, this album is amazing, and I would say it rivals The Almighty from A La Zuli Lu. Another bold statement that people are probably going to shut down, but I think it does. Absolutely. So if you've not listened to Lost Lake Estates, go check it out. Especially Nobody. Like, the wordplay on there, fucking A, dude. And like, yeah, it's amazing. Check it out. Jumping into my number 2. And this one, I could have swore this one was probably going to end up at number 1. I'm not really surprised it ended up at number 2. This album, absolutely amazing. We didn't get its full realization, its full potential. Of course, I'm talking Lowkey, Portraits of Horror. This was meant to be a full-length album. Lowkey got ghosted by Seven, so the album didn't get to be realized as its full realization. It ended up becoming an EP. Because he could only put out the tracks that he had done. This album was I think going to be probably in the easily top 5 albums from Lowkey, and even as it is, I think it is. It ties and connects to a lot of his lore. It ties and connects to the oracles. The oracles are referenced multiple times throughout this, in the intro and through a couple of the songs. It helps build that lore to what Lowkey is representing with Shadowland. So this album, I had to track it very tricky, because it was originally released as singles, and then once all the singles came out, it was supposed to be the album dropped. So I listened to the singles as they dropped. Then the album was released physically, which I bought. So I uploaded it so I could hear it with the intro and listen to it as that. And then it dropped digitally, so I decided to just add the digital version and keep listening to that. And so I had to take numbers from all 3 times I listened to it and add them together. Literally, in my iTunes, there's a Portraits of Horror 1, a Portraits of Horror 2, and a Portraits of Horror 3. Because I went into iTunes and like edited the names of them so I could track which versions I listened to. And the singles were what brought the most numbers for it to get the score that it did. So, Lowkey, Portraits of Horror. If you are sleeping on Lowkey, you are fucking up. I am somebody who was guilty of sleeping on Lowkey, and I know I fucked up. I'm telling you, if you've never heard of him, if you have heard of him and you're not listening to him, you are fucking up. That's all I can say. Moving on to our number 1. Not really surprised that this is here. I'm talking Cabal The Pit. This shit dropped. It made fucking tidal waves. I've been introducing it to people even as late of last week. Shout out to Massacre Media. She is a big Lowkey fan. She's a big a la Zulu fan. She's a juggalo, you know. And this slipped under her radar, and I had to school her on it, and she's been coming back with like, yo, this shit is dope. I know. That's why I needed to make sure you knew about it. The Pit is almost on the level of being cinematic. There's a story being told here. I said earlier in the video, the end is nigh from the Horde very well connects to it. This album connects to it as well. There's a story being told, and I cannot wait to hear the rest. Lowkey was on some fucking Oracle shit, and that's why I think we're getting a fifth Oracle, because I don't know if he started working on the fifth Oracle as he was recording this and Portraits of Horror, and that's why his mind just so easily went there, and he was able to kind of channel that energy, or if from doing this project and Portraits of Horror made him like, yo, it's time for the fifth. I don't know which of those two scenarios it was, but it makes so much sense that the Pit has those feelings, those vibes. Portraits of Horror references the Oracles, and now we are getting the fifth Oracle coming very soon. Hopefully 2024. That'd be the shit. It was my first time being a fan of Lowkey for an Oracle drop. I'm excited as fuck for it. But Lowkey absolutely killed it as always. He was the MVP on The Watchers. That was my introduction to him. That was when I woke up and I was like, yo, I've been sleeping on this guy. Go check this album out. Fucking Mr. Gray was channeling some demonic shit. And of course, Buckshot is continuing to just grow with his abilities and his talents. So, Portraits of Cabal's The Pit. No surprise that it's number one. I would highly recommend checking that album out as well as listening to The Watchers, and listen to them together. Put them in a playlist and listen to them together. And if you can, go find the singles, Bottomless, New World, and Lose It All. Those are good ones too. If you slap those between the Pit, it helps transition beautifully. So yeah, that is my top 10 albums of 2023. Now I'm going to show you my numbers. People are probably going to see the fact that Bloody Sunday is high. It's got a high score. I purposely left it off because, like I said, I forced that album down my throat. The numbers there are not genuine. If I had never have done that, and the reason I did it was so that I could do a review, because I wanted to listen to it over and over and over to really dissect it. Dissect what I liked, what I didn't like, what he could have done different. So I forced the album down my throat. It really kind of ruined the listening experience, and I haven't listened to Bloody Sunday since I dropped my review. So its numbers are not genuine. But let's go ahead and switch this over so that you guys can see the numbers here. Like I said, I took the top 3 songs that had the most plays and put them in their own little brackets over here, and then added those numbers together, and that's how I came up with my ranking. That's been the best system that I can think of, and it's the most genuine because I think people's thoughts change constantly. So one day I could say, oh, this was the top album, and then the next day I could say, well, this one was the top album. It's really all in how you're feeling when you're listening to the albums, you know? And as I was listening to Lost Lake Estates, like, I have multiple times, like, this is definitely a contender for top album, you know? I knew it was going to be a top fucking album because I just loved it so fucking much. But then I go listen to The Pit, and I'm like, yo, this is the top album. This is the shit. So numbers don't lie. That's how I came up with my ranking. And then there's my little cheat sheet, so I didn't have to like try to find the numbers. But yeah, there you guys go. That is my top albums of 2023. Tell me down below what you guys think. Do you agree with my list? What albums do you think should have made it on here that didn't? And what are your top albums of 2023? Anyway, I thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.